trade my time for rolling dollar signs.
Hi, I'm Chris J. Hudson. I sing and compose music and also voice act in LA. Every song has a concept, and those initial ideas come from people and stories in real life. They've enriched my mind and made me a more complete person, so I figured, hey, why not share it with the world? You can only fit so much into one song. So without further ado, welcome to Think Outside the Box. If you're tired of the status quo, this podcast explores the freshest ideas and profiles inspiring people who are doing things differently. So let's go. Hello and welcome to the show. If I sound a little froggy for this introduction, I'm battling a throat infection, but was so excited for today's guest, I just had to get this episode out. For our second episode, we continue our Expats series with a special guest, celebrity dating coach and best-selling author Dave Perrotta. For those new to the term, expat is short for expatriate, which is someone who moves outside the U.S. to live and work. So often I only think of what's possible in the U.S., but there are so many opportunities available for those who think globally. In the saying, the world is your oyster, which origins are from Shakespeare, he makes a great point. In the notorious B.I.G. song, The World is Filled, Carl Thomas sings, "The world is mine, can't you see? I'm just trying to be all I can be." Both legends have it right. Think big, win big. One more thing. This episode contains explicit language. Hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Let's begin. All right, we are here talking today with the dating and lifestyle guru, the author of Conversation Casanova and the Hookup Handbook. He's got a lot of great advice and tips on YouTube and just an all-around great guy. Dave Perrotta, welcome to the show.
How's it going, man? Glad to be on.
Oh, good. It's going great, man. Life is good. For those who don't know, we want to kind of get to know you a little bit. Can you start off by just telling us where you're originally from?
Yeah, I'm actually from Cranston, Rhode Island, smallest state in the country, but we get a big heart over here. And I'm actually over here right now for the holidays, visiting my family and stuff. So back in Rhode Island.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, it's a great state. One of my closest friends is from Rhode Island too.
Nice,
Said it's
nice.
Beautiful up there. How was it growing up in Cranston, Rhode Island?
I think it was sort of like the typical suburban kind of lifestyle. You know, it's really just you're right in the middle of the suburbs over here. You get the high school, you get all the kids in the neighborhood. It's just a lot of people know each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Italian over here.
Okay.
So it's just like a very Italian type of culture, very Italian, very Irish, and I mean it's cool. It's just like basically picture your typical suburban type of culture, and that's what it is.
Okay, pretty picturesque, I take it.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of kid were you when you were growing up? Were you like the daredevil type?
Definitely not. I think I tried being a daredevil once. I tried doing an ollie on a skateboard. That didn't work out. Tried going up tiny. I tried going up like a 6-inch ramp on my bike, fell off, scraped my knee, cried. I was like 10 years old. So definitely wasn't a daredevil. But I was more of a very shy guy, shy kid growing up. Didn't really know how to talk to girls. Didn't really, know how to really get out of my shell. Not until I was older. So there's always sort of the shy kid just trying to figure out a way to fit in.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes sense. So you weren't like, Tomb Raider style where your parents are like archaeologists and, didn't have a crazy upbringing. Just sounds like you're a regular guy. Yeah.
Well, growing up, definitely.
Definitely. Okay. And so I asked that question because a lot of times when people think about, expatriates or expats, people who, move to a different country to live, to work, they think that they're, some kind of like an adventure guy. And you know what I mean? They're going through the jungles in Amazon and, like they're doctors trying to help, tribal people. But I think it's good to know that there are people out there, there are expats who are just regular people and that anybody can do it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of us are no different than anyone else. We just sort of decided at some point in our life to, we're going to try to do something a little bit different and kind of live outside the norm a little bit. Not always because we want to be super adventurous or anything crazy like that, but just because a lot of times we just want that extra freedom. I'm sure we'll talk more about that later as well. But
oh, for sure.
Definitely. And so in your book, the reason that I was introduced to you, Conversation Casanova, you mentioned that you got your degree in accounting. How was, accounting? How's that life for you when you were studying, when you finished? And at what point did you decide to pursue a new direction?
Honestly, at this point where I'm at now, I would say I don't even know if I believe in college as thing that's even worth it for the majority of people.
Really?
Back when I started, it was sort of I was good at accounting in high school. My mom, she's an accountant, and it was just sort of like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to major in. Maybe I'm just going to pick this thing that I'm good at and that I know can make some good money, or at least have some good security. So I'm just going to do this in college, and I'll see what happens. And then as I was sort of slugging along through it, I started going through accounting courses, got through all the the BS electives in the first couple of years, and really started going into the hard accounting courses when I was a junior in college. I started to realize, like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this. But at the same time, you didn't really know what other option I had, so I just kind of kept slugging along until I graduated. I had an internship at an accounting firm and stuff. It seemed all right, but I think in the back of my mind, I knew like there's no way I can do this like forever. Like there's just no way, because I would go crazy sitting in a cubicle over here.
Yeah.
I would lose my mind.
Yeah. I'm sure, a lot of people are definitely feeling that same vein. Was there like a particular incident that happened that you were like, I can't do this anymore?
Yeah, it was actually my mom had a lot of health problems when I was younger. She had a bad lung disease for about like 8 years. She's all good now. She had this crazy double lung transplant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like this miracle story. She had like a 2% chance to live, and then it like she went to a coma, survived it. Now she's 6-7 years later, she's all good.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, it's a crazy story. But one day I was working sort of this accounting/admin job, probably like a year after college, or the summer after I graduated. And I remember I got a call from the hospital saying like, "Oh, your mom's here. She got real sick, and she come see her." And I was like, "Damn." And at that point, I just got up out of the office and just walked out and drove over to see my mom. And I started realizing that moment, like, as cliche as it sounds, like life really is too short. I can't be wasting why am I wasting my time in this shitty office when I could be, I could die tomorrow. I got to like really start, taking my life by storm and trying to do these things that I've been waiting to do.
Yeah.
And I can't wait any longer. And I never went back to that job. That day I walked out, I never went back.
Wow. So did you know, I guess, what you wanted to do, or did you have things that you were kind of pursuing that ended up taking over that?
Honestly, when I first started, I really had no idea. Like I knew I maybe something with writing, maybe something with dating, because I was interested in that in the moment. I said, I'm not really quite sure. So I ended up trying to go really hard with writing and freelance writing for a couple months. Really, basically just like fell flat in my face, and I actually had to get another job like as a door-to-door salesman for her, because I didn't want to go back to accounting. So I got a job as a door-to-door guy for like 10 months.
That's
windows
hard
and
work.
roofs. And my main goal doing that was, all right, I'm going to just go here, save as much money as I can, and then I'm going to quit and try again, because I didn't have enough money saved the first time, and I didn't really do it in a smart way. So this time I was like, all right, I'm going to do this the right way and see if I can make it happen.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. And then from what I read, you started to do like a blog. Was it a blog?
Yeah, I had this idea that a lot of guys had trouble just dating after college, and I saw a lot of there was a lot of dating stuff out there, but it was very like pickup-y, and just like these weird dudes out here trying to be pickup artists, just like using all these crazy techniques and stuff like that, And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna be a normal dude talking about this stuff in just sort of like a normal way, and let's just see if guys would be interested, and sort of just built it out from there.
Definitely. Yeah, from reading the book, I loved the advice was just so practical. And it felt like my brother, I have an older brother, and he gave me that same, like, very similar advice, like when I first started. And it was just like, that's, a very normal way to approach girls. It's not over the top. It's not some Hollywood, craziness. Like it was very relatable. And so that's what I really loved about the writing in the book. It's no wonder that things took off.
it started out just as the idea, and then I just started writing more blog posts, tried to be consistent with it. I met other people who were doing something similar, like my buddy
Yeah.
David from How to Beast. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he's got a huge YouTube channel now about like fitness and confidence and dating and stuff. We
Mhm.
met when we were both basically nobodies, and we were both trying to like do something. And he had written some Amazon books at the time, and he gave me a few tips, and together we sort of just helped each other to kind of climb the ladder of blogging success, I guess you could say, and turn our blog sort of just into these ideas and things that were fun to write but weren't really generating money into things that really had assets like these Amazon books and online courses and stuff.
Mhm.
So uh, so yeah, I mean, just having that relationship with him at the time really basically allowed everything else to sort of bloom into what it is now and what it's continued, how it's continuing to grow.
Yeah, yeah. And so at this point, I guess in the story, things are starting to go well for you. At what point did you decide that you were wanting to maybe move to a different country?
Well, to backtrack a little bit, before I guess in the blogging stages, back before my blog took off a little bit more and my Amazon like the Hookup Handbook Conversation Casanova started doing really well, I
Mhm.
still needed some money while my blog was while I was growing. So I ended up doing a lot of copywriting, which basically, for those who don't know, copywriting is sort of like kind of like email marketing. It's basically like sales writing. You're basically selling through the written word. So anytime you see like an ad or anything, that's copywriting. And I always enjoyed writing, so I figured I'm gonna learn this skill. So I taught myself this skill over the period of a couple of months, and then I started reaching out to people, and that's when I got a sort of like an apprenticeship type of opportunity with a guy in Vietnam who had an online business out there, and he needed a copywriter. I applied for it. I was only a beginner, but he liked sort of my energy. He liked that I was, hungry and stuff, and he ended up giving
Mhm.
me a shot. And he's like, all right, but you got to come out to Vietnam for a couple months, and we're going to train you, and we're going to do this and this. It's like, all right, let's do it. So I think at the time the contract was like $2,000 a month. So I was like, all right, I was super excited. I bought my plane ticket to Vietnam, and then
Wow.
then just went out, started working with this guy. Of course, like the guy ended up being kind of shady, and like about a month and a half into my time in Vietnam, he had to like let me go because he couldn't afford me anymore.
Really?
Which yeah,
After
so
just 1 month?
yeah, so I was sort of
Oh,
like, all right, I need to make something happen now. I was sort of faced with
yeah.
my back's to the wall now. But
Yeah.
luckily, there was tons of entrepreneurs out in Vietnam at the time. There still are, but I had a good circle of friends that I built up over there, and it wasn't super hard for me to find copywriting opportunities while I was there. So I ended up sort of making it work, and keep my head above water while I was in Vietnam, just through copywriting and the relationships that I'd built.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Your back was to the wall. You came through.
Yeah, but I've had plenty of those situations, I guess, in my life, and especially since I've been doing online business, where like different times and different extents, where my back has sort of like been against the wall, where I've like lost opportunities, and
Mhm.
I've really had to make things work in a period of months, and those kind of things can be scary, and especially if you're thinking about doing something online, it's scary to think about, but it's sort of like a true test of who you are as a person, like whether or not like, hey, I'm out here in Vietnam, I have like about 2 months of savings.
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to make this work? Am I going to be able to, or am I going to have to beg my parents to buy me a plane ticket home? Like, what am I going to do? And like that's going to be testament to who you are. And it's interesting. Like that type of shit for me was interesting, and I feel like sometimes in life you get to test yourself like that, and it's going to make you a better person in the end.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, those kind of experience kind of make us who we are.
Definitely.
So, well, I guess before this, did you do a lot of international travel? Did you have a lot of, maybe
No,
international
no,
experience?
I went to Mexico for like a couple of days during spring break when I was in college,
Mhm.
and I went to Canada for like a weekend, like Montreal for a weekend, like when I was still working a regular job. So I had really no international travel experience. So it was definitely quite the culture shock just hopping over to Vietnam. But I had one friend from Boston who was over there and had been in that scene for a bit, so he sort of helped
Mhm.
me get acclimated. I went over, crashed on his couch for about a week, and then found till I found my own spot, my own place over there. And then he introduced me to the whole scene, and just having that one connection over there really helped me to get acclimated, and made it a lot easier, the transition. 'Cause I would have been, I don't know if I would have lasted without that in my first big travel, because Asia is a lot different than anything else you've seen if you haven't been left America.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Yeah, the fun thing about Vietnam is it was a sort of there was a huge crew out there at the time, and we were all in a similar stage in terms of internet business. Yeah, I feel like this was like a prime time. It was just starting to like take off, like everybody was hungry. Everybody was just starting out. It felt like there were some guys who were balling out and absolutely killing the game for sure, but a lot of guys were just starting out and just only making a few thousand a month, if that. And we were all just sort of bouncing ideas off of each other, supporting each other, going out to the clubs together, just like sharing our dreams, just helping each other level up. And it was just a really fun period in terms of that. And then in terms of the actual country, you know, the food was great. It was super cheap. I think I had an apartment for like $200 or $300 a month.
Wow.
And I was living with like 3 random French people from Craigslist. And and I met all these cool people though, and it was just this big adventure, and it was definitely, it was an interesting experience. Like I was really scared at first, and I kind of didn't like it for the first few weeks because it was such a culture shock. But as I got more and more into it, I liked it more and more, and yeah, it ended up being a lot of fun and teaching me a lot about the world.
I also read afterwards that you didn't stop at Vietnam, that you ended up settling down in Mexico for a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's been many stops along this journey. So Vietnam was my first stop, and it's been about 4 or 5 years since then. And I remember my buddy telling me, he was like, "Yo," he's my buddy from Boston who had, he'd been to Vietnam first. He's like, "Man, once you're here, like you're gonna see it. This is the first stop, and it's gonna open the doors up for you for the entire world. Like once you come through here and you can make this work, like the world is your oyster." And I remember that, and it really ended up being true because I was able to build like a consistent source of online income, and then from there I was able to sort of leverage that into making more and more income over time, and then being able to just get to the point where I could just travel wherever I wanted to, where I could go. I ended up going to Colombia. I came back to Boston for a couple months after Vietnam, settled in a little bit, and then went out to Medellin, Colombia, then spent some time there, then went out to Spain and spent some time there, and then it just the travels continued. Then eventually I ended up in Mexico, and I found that I really like Mexico, especially Mexico City, a lot, just the culture and the people there, and the way the city's laid out and stuff. But yeah, just being in Vietnam, that was the first stop in the journey, and it really opened the doors to everything else.
Wow. And so did you speak the language? Did you speak Vietnamese or Spanish?
Definitely not. Yeah, I didn't speak any Vietnamese. I didn't plan on speaking any Vietnamese. But a lot of people speak English here, so it's all good. Same thing in like Thailand. Like I've been living in Thailand for a little bit too. Like, a lot of people speak English there if you're in Bangkok, stuff like that. In Mexico and Colombia, I did end up learning the language. I dated a Mexican girl for a while, so that definitely helped. And so yeah, I speak a pretty good level of Spanish now, which I never thought I'd be able to say, but it's been an interesting part of the last couple of years as well.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So you don't necessarily have to know the language first before you move there, depending on the country.
Yeah, there's definitely places where it always helps to have a few words, but I mean, there's places where it's more annoying to not know the language than others too. Like I was in Japan for a month this summer.
Yeah, Japan.
And I don't speak a word of Japanese, and I probably spoke to maybe 5 or 6 people, to 5 or 6 Japanese people who spoke any kind of coherent level of English in like a 5-week period. And wow. It was right. I really felt the difficulty of the language barrier there far more than anywhere else I've been in the world.
Okay, no, I understand, and I've been there as well. That's where my brother's from, and when I went back for his wedding, I got to spend a little bit of time in Nagoya, and it was tough navigating.
Nice. Well, yeah, it's an interesting place out there. I wouldn't choose to go back and live for a long time, but it definitely, it's an interesting place. That's all I'll say.
All right, well, Can you give us like maybe one of the coolest moments here? You're a great storyteller from your, your adventures in Mexico, Vietnam, Colombia, wherever, whatever country that kind of comes to mind where you thought, man, I'm so glad that I decided to live here.
I would say one of the funnest times I've had was actually in Budapest. Didn't love Budapest as a city to live in, but we were in there was a music festival in Budapest, and it was like me and six other of my friends who I've known and who we all just travel around the world together, and we had all just left Mexico City for the summer, and we were hopping around Europe for a little bit, and we were at this music festival, and we were all just enjoying the music, sticking together, having an amazing time, and just like that feeling of like togetherness with a group of guys who are on sort of the same wavelength as you, a wavelength that so many people are unfamiliar with, because there's still not very many people who have this kind of lifestyle. Right. So it's just cool that we're all sort of on this adventure together, and we have all these memories. I mean, it's like having a group of friends who you just like the same group, but you just have all these memories with each other from all over the world, right? Like you just it's crazy. And I just always remember this. It's called Ziget Festival in Budapest, and we just had a great time. Managed to stick together the entire time, and had enjoyed some really great music. I think Macklemore was there and stuff, and it was just sort of like the pinnacle of traveling, having great friends along the way, and just like having fun along the way too, while also keeping in the mind of working hard. I would say like that. That's one of my favorite moments.
Definitely seeing Macklemore in Budapest. Huh?
Not a
lot of people can say
I think the Chainsmokers were there too. Yeah, it was a crazy festival. But there's been a lot of adventures along the way. Like I blasted confetti for DJ Hardwell, who's like the number one DJ in the world at the time. I went on tour with him. That was before I even started traveling.
Wow.
Like I was in a music video in Vietnam. Yeah, there's tons of different things, but it's always been an adventure, and the biggest thing that's made it so fun is just having good friends along the way to travel with, to meet up with, and guys who are going to support you.
Yeah.
People in general, because without that, none of this would even be really worth it. Like it was like you wouldn't catch me going to Japan by myself or like Budapest by myself. Like it wouldn't be that much fun. So
yeah, so would you recommend making as many connections as you can, like while you're there?
I would say like try to get into different types of communities. Like I'm part of one community called the DC, which is the Dynamite Circle. It's basically just a big forum of like thousands of online entrepreneurs, and they're just big hubs in many major cities across the world with people from this forum. And it's a lot of just basically people who just work online. There's like one big conference every year in Bangkok, and I've been to that a couple of times. They have, and it's always like a few hundred people go, and it's basically just like all of my friends come through, and we just meet up in Bangkok for the year. We just like reminisce on the past couple of years, and it's a great time. So finding communities like that is gonna go a long way. Whether it's an entrepreneurial community, whether maybe it's a language learning community, whatever kind of community it is, the community that you can vibe with, like try to find those type of people, and yeah, it's gonna make your travels a lot better, and it's gonna make your life a lot more fun.
Sounds good. Great advice. And so we're actually going to be moving into more of the advice questions that we have. Can you go over some of the advantages, and just to be really like maybe some disadvantages in your experience living outside the U.S., things that people should be aware of?
Well, one of the fun things about living outside the U.S., especially if you're in like Southeast Asia or a place like Mexico or Colombia and stuff, like there's not that many rules. Like you can really almost do whatever you want to a point. Like there's it's sort of like the Wild West, especially like Asia. Like you can do whatever you want. It's crazy out there, but it's a lot of fun. Like whether it's something as small as drinking a beer in the street to just, I can't even think of like specific examples now, but just basically like many rules that there are in the U.S. like just don't apply in other places. Like you can pay off a cop with like $20 or something, like yeah. Like I think one time in Mexico, I was flying my drone, and my drone got caught like 25 feet up in a tree. And I just like looked over to one Mexican guy. I was like, "Yo, like, are you good at climbing trees?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah." I just paid him $25, and he ended up just like climbing this 25-foot tree and like getting my drone
Wow.
back for me. Yeah, it's just like that probably would not happen in America, right? So
Probably not.
there's a lot of like fun things like that, and
Hmm.
uh, yeah, there's a lot of like freedom to sort of like that lack of rules. It's like this freedom and craziness, but it makes it fun.
Oh, that's really great. Well,
But
oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that you're gonna talk about the disadvantages of that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd say like not having the rules is fun, but that's also the same type of thing that leads to a lot of the disadvantages, which it can sometimes be it's harder to do certain things. It's harder to find certain like products, whether it be health products or maybe like a hair product you like, stuff like that. It can be more difficult to get like a gym membership sometimes. Like in Japan, you couldn't go to the gym. Like a lot of gyms wouldn't let you in if you had tattoos
Tattoos.
that were like
Yeah,
exposed on your skin.
they're very
My
big on
friend
that.
has basically he's a big tattoo on his arm,
Hmm.
and whenever he forgot to wear sleeveless like a sleeve shirt, they just wouldn't let him in, and
Yeah.
and things like that. And there's also times where like basically you just have to be sort of aware. Like you can't just if you act really dumb when you're not in your own country, you don't know what you're getting into. Right?
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
give you one example. When I was in Japan, I was walking through. I was in a club and I was walking through to this sort of like this back part of the club,
Hmm.
and there was a doorway, and I just walked through the doorway, and this like older Japanese guy just shoulders me as I'm walking through the doorway, and I'm like, this motherfucker. And I was like, I, I was like a little drunk. I kind of shouldered him back a little bit.
Okay.
All of a sudden, he steps back. He gives me these crazy eyes, like he's about to, like he wants to kill me. Like I'd never seen a person look at me like they wanted to murder me before.
Wow.
Like this dude looked at me, right? And then he basically just starts coming at me. He like takes his shirt off, hands it to the bouncer. I'm looking at the bouncer, this little Japanese guy. I'm like, yo, what, are you gonna do something? And he's just like not doing anything. Then the guy takes his shirt off. His back is all tatted up, and he
Oh,
goes, Yakuza,
yeah, he's probably
Yakuza.
Yakuza.
Yeah, he starts yelling Yakuza, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh
no.
shit. And then, like I don't know if this guy has a weapon, if he has a bunch of his goons upstairs, or like what the deal is.
Yeah.
And he's coming at me. He tries choking me out. He's reaching in his pocket like he has a knife and stuff. And I'm like, the whole time my buddy's behind him. He sees it going down. He's got a beer bottle in his hand, ready to smash over this guy's head.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the hell am I gonna do right now? We're all about to get killed in Japan. But I saw my out when he like looked away for a second, and I just ran out of that room and I got away. And I went back to my friends, but it was a real close call. But that's just an example of like you're
Wow.
not in America anymore. You know, you got to watch out who you mess with because you can, maybe it's going to be a Mexican narco, or maybe it's going to be a guy in the Yakuza. You don't know, and it's hard to protect yourself in that type of situation. You know, so you got to be smart.
For sure. And you may not necessarily have the authorities on your side.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Like those Japanese, like that bouncer, the Japanese
bouncer.
bouncer, he did not give a shit. He was not going to stop it. This dude could have tried to stab me. He wouldn't stop him. So
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably good business for that establishment. So
yeah,
they probably
exactly,
just let them do what they want.
exactly.
Whenever you come back to visit the United States, you said that you're back right now, back in Rhode Island for the holidays. Does it still feel like home? All that traveling that you've done?
Yeah, you know, it's different because I'm so used to being out of the States for most of the year now that it's sort of
Hmm.
like I'm stepping back into this bubble where I've kind of been out of the loop for a bit. Like I still follow the news, I still follow like social media stuff and
Hmm.
things like that. But yeah, it doesn't always feel like it feels like home still, but not as much as it used to. And I think now, like where I have the most feeling of home is just where I feel the most comfortable. And right now, it's a place like Mexico City. You know, it's of course it's nice being over here visiting my family and things like that. Like that,
Yeah.
it's always, like Rhode Island's always going to be home too. But
Hmm.
uh, yeah, there's sort of like a more distant feeling the more you spend time outside, and you kind of like see more of like the flaws of living in the U.S. too.
So it gave you basically like a different perspective, an outside perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I still say I would come back and live here long term. Like within the next couple of years, but it's been fun being outside of it for most of my 20s, and yeah, I think it's led to some great experiences.
For sure, for sure. So, last but not least, what advice would you give for people that are looking to maybe change the game up, switch things up, and move outside of the U.S.?
Well, I would say number one, like build a skill, whether it be as an online marketable skill. So for me, that was copywriting. It's a great skill to learn. It's a foundation of business, right? That's going to take you a long way if you can, and it's the type of skill you can teach yourself. If you look up how to learn copywriting, you can do it yourself, right? There's other skills like social media, advertising, and there's just like tons of different skills online you can learn, whether it's like building your own course, things like that. And having those skills is going to help you to make money online, which is going to help you to not go belly up when you go to a different country. And it's going to help you to not have to rely on like teaching English. So a lot of people would, I'm going to move to Vietnam, I'm going to teach English. Then they end up like working a bunch of hours and they just like teach English for like 3 years and then just go home and they don't do anything else with it. Right. Like they don't. Yeah. That's it. But if you want to make this something that you can do for the long term, like that, having those skills, having that's going to be like your foundation that you can build on, and you can continuously make money as you travel and really take the limit off of what your income can be. So that's a big. And also try to build relationships too. Before you go visit someplace, see if you can reach out online. Like every major city has like forums on Facebook and things like that where you can reach out and try to connect with people. Do that. Like figure out where the best places to live in that city are. Figure out like what type of groups, what the culture's like, and things like that. Yeah. And so you don't kind of screw yourself and go to a place that you hate and book like a year there or something. So get those kind of things in place. I would also say like get your finances in order too. Like get a Charles Schwab card because they don't have any ATM fees internationally. So so you're good in that regard. That's a lifesaver. Oh, right there. Sure. Also, say get like a Chase credit card because they don't have any international fees either. So just getting the finance in order to building your skills, building those relationships, doing all those things is gonna sort of really, really help you to travel and travel well and not go belly up.
For sure, for sure. Well, it's been quite an adventure so far. I wish you the best of luck, and thanks once again for stopping by. Those people who want to know more about Dave Perrotta, do you have a website that they can go to find out a little bit more, social media links? Where can they find out more about you?
Well, the best way right now is through my YouTube channel. If you just search my name, Dave Perrotta, you'll find me on YouTube. And I'm putting out videos every single week, dating, lifestyle, some travel stuff. Really just helping you become sort of the best version of yourself. So that's where you're going to find me most. You can also find me on postgradcasanova.com and through Instagram as well, which is also just my name, Dave Perrotta. So those are the best places.
Awesome. All right, beautiful. Well, thanks once again for your time, Dave. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts would be, if you're out there looking to maybe make a big change, and if you listen to a podcast like this, and you probably are, like, it's always going to be scary, but it's also, there's a lot of fun to be had along the way. And even though a lot of people are going to doubt you, it doesn't mean it's impossible. Many people doubted me at the beginning. Even my parents were like, I don't know if you can do this, or what the hell are you doing? But I just ignored everybody, plowed forward and made it happen. And, I don't regret any of it. And I'm hoping this can last forever. So for you, ignore the haters, keep plowing forward. If you want to make it happen, like, you can do it. So just keep that in mind.
Like Dave was saying, he didn't have everyone on his side when he decided to make the decision to move internationally. Even his parents were against it. Times like this are when we have to believe in ourselves. That inner drive kicks in, and we shift into high gear. The bottom line is, it's your life. YOLO is the motto. At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you to be happy. That's why at the end of each episode, I always say, think courageously, live compassionately, and always do you. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next episode, we start our Alternatives Jobs series with a truly remarkable woman, Guru Mitar. A yogi to the stars, she sold one of the biggest Halloween companies in LA and trained in Asia for over 10 years to become a guru. I traveled to the Pacific Palisades to do the interview on location. It's one conversation you don't want to miss. Until next time, enjoy the ending theme, and like I said before, think courageously, live compassionately, and always do you.